Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey experienced a career revival beginning in the year 2011 and running more or less until the year 2014. The New Yorker described it best in this quote below. Bold second act in the American actor's life, which somehow feels as novel as it does deliberate. McConaughey's return to the Hollywood firmament in the past 2 years has had an unusually organic quality to it, in that critics and audiences alike have quickly made room for his new oddball intensity and his desire to make interesting choices again after a decade of just
Livin.
and relying on his dimples and his baritone drawl. Well, that does a pretty good job of summing up the situation. McConaughey had a decade's worth of dismal films released in theaters, including Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, Surfer Dude, Fool's Gold, Failure to Launch, Sahara, Tiptoes, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, The Wedding Planner. All of these, really just a shame, since we knew he was talented. His first major role is that in Dazed and Confused, a performance which has become a synthesis for how the public views McConaughey. The laid-back surfer dude with the southern drawl and a charming personality, if also a little creepy.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Okay, now very, very creepy. And he won an MTV Movie Award for Best Breakthrough Performance in A Time to Kill, and his roles in Contact, Amistad, and EdTV all showed promise for a long and successful future. But then, his star quality in Hollywood faded, and he was sidelined to romantic comedies and box office bombs that told everyone that this was not the next Paul Newman or Steve McQueen. This was the next Nick Cage, probably. And his career was on its way to fizzle into the nether as age added to his irrelevance. But then, 2011 hit. Lincoln Lawyer, Bernie, Killer Joe, 3 successful movies all in the same year, and Matt was looking at the start of a comeback. This is a comeback that blasted through the next 3 years of his career and soared to impressive heights of quality and quantity. Casual moviegoers couldn't escape the man, as they would go to see Channing Tatum strip in Magic Mike, and bam! McConaughey was there to open the film, stealing the show. Well, maybe I'll go see respected film actor Leonardo DiCaprio snort cocaine off of a stripper, and bam! McConaughey is there, stealing the show again as he does his tribal chants of capitalistic horror. He was also leading films like Mud, where he played Mud. He was bringing in box office revenue. He was bringing in critical love and respect. And then it happened, 2013, when McConaughey plays 2 roles in the same year that tells the world that the McConaissance is something that will be remembered in the film history textbooks for years to come. Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective both provide McConaughey the opportunity and platform to really spread his wings on screen and demand to be watched. He is nominated for both an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year and wins the Oscar for Best Actor, taking the man from failure to launch to success to launch, I guess. McConaughey rides this public hype and respect all the way to 2014 with the release of Interstellar. The movie made money, the movie was fairly positive with the public, but this is kinda where Matt's renaissance ends. Sea of Trees, Free State of Jones, and Gold aren't received well commercially or critically. He did voice work in Kubo, so he has decent to good work available to him, and we can never forget those famous car commercials. But once we get to Dark Tower and Serenity, we know that this was a career trajectory that peaked. And now he's more or less reset to the time before, but now with a bit more clout and respect, albeit still very strange respect, like with The Beach Bum and Gentleman. So I think it's fair to say that the McConaissance lasted from March of 2011 to November of 2014. A successful string that we can all be proud of McConaughey for accomplishing. And I was very excited at the time for the ability to witness it all go down. But then, something interesting happened. I walked into this little tiny film called Birdman at the end of 2014, and I see a man up on the screen, ascending to the heavens above, as his career hits a brand new stride, with big long legs to carry him with to success. That's right, baby, it's Michael Keaton, and he's here to bring about a career renaissance of his own, also known as the Keaton-sance. The Keaton-sance is the period of revived success from American actor Michael Keaton that began with the release of Birdman in 2014. Prior to Birdman, Keaton was most famous for his role as Batman in Tim Burton's take on the Caped Crusader in 1989. He is fantastic in Beetlejuice and is also known for his comedic work like Mr. Mom. But once we get to the late 90s, he isn't as much of a box office leading man or respected star as much as a well-liked character actor. I don't really think Jack Frost really helped in that department.
You know, sometimes it's good to have a big butt. Let's get out of here!
The 2000s have him in Herbie Fully Loaded, and voicing characters in Cars and Toy Story 3, and an incredibly memorable supporting role in The Other Guys.
Hey, Alan. Hey, how you doing? What are you doing here? Are you here for the bath mats?
So, fine. The beginning of 2014 was even worse for his career, though, with back-to-back disappointments with Need for Speed, RoboCop, and Blindsided.
Just tell me where the diamonds are.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll talk more about Blindsided later, don't worry. So anyways, Birdman's release near the end of the year changes his entire career trajectory. He's back on the front line, and he gets nominated for Best Acting for the role too, and the film ends up winning Best Picture. And guess what happens next year? He stars in Spotlight, and then that film wins Best Picture too. He also gets voice work in the billion-dollar movie Minions. The quality of Minions aside, you can see the momentum in a career that works on a billion-dollar movie. And at this point, Keaton's career is higher than it's ever been since Batman, maybe even more so. So what's most interesting about all of this is the timeline. If we say that the McConaissance ended in the fall of 2014, it almost feels like fate that the Keaton-sance begins during that same time period. And so what does that mean when Keaton's renaissance is over? Well, for now, let's continue with Keaton's filmography. This train ride chugs along with the well-respected The Founder in 2016, and more or less ends in 2017 with one of the best Marvel villains of the MCU as the Vulture. A successful run that is very justified for its success and longevity, but after Spider-Man Homecoming, we had the release of McConaissance in September of that year. So, and then we take a year off of his output until he returns with Dumbo. And thus, the end of the Keaton-sance is confirmed. A lack of films being released, and the only one present being a critical and box office disappointment. So, the Keaton-sance ended, definitely, in the summer of 2017. I know I should talk about what happens next, but I'm actually going to take a quick jump ahead to June 9th, 2019, when the fourth American actor renaissance occurs. And the moment when this renaissance begins can be pinpointed to a single moment streamed for the world to obsess over.
The feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
Keanu Reeves is the fourth generation of the Renaissance actor, the Keanu-sance. And let me tell you, what began with the summer of Keanu is still running strong. It all began with John Wick 3 being released in May of 2019, a series that has been gaining traction with each new entry and reached a new height with a box office domestic opening weekend for John Wick 3 that more than tripled its first installment's total domestic gross. This is followed just a few weeks later with a supporting role in Always Be My Maybe on Netflix that plays on the public's perception of his good-hearted and faithful ways. But then, just over a week after the release of Always Be My Maybe, Keanu gets up on stage at E3 on June 9th, 2019 and proves that he is capable of crossing over into both video games and internet culture for all to see. About to star in one of the most anticipated AAA game titles, as well as production going underway for a third Bill and Ted film and a fourth Matrix movie, shows that the Keanu hype has a lot of sway in the industry right now. Piled on top of that was Keanu's role in the beloved Toy Story 4, and a marketed cameo in the theatrical SpongeBob SquarePants movie. And what's important to remember is that Keanu's career, ever since The Matrix, has been very rocky and unsolidified. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 47 Ronin, and a whole batch of forgettable pictures are what fill his 2001 to 2014 filmography. But then, when we see the release of John Wick, his career finds a new breath of air. but one that needs a bit more time and momentum to gain actual credible traction. And there are still many duds along the way. But once June of 2019 hits, the Keanu-sance begins and is in full force. Keanu possesses an extremely likable personality, matched with an enthusiasm for both life and the work that he is doing, which makes him someone the public respects and is drawn to. And the complete flourishing of his career is going to continue, with the additional John Wick films in the pipeline and so much more. I think it's important to recognize that if Keanu hadn't stepped up on that stage on E3 2019, we might not have this fourth Matrix film. Or maybe we would, but it would take a bit longer to actually reach production. But right now, the industry understands that Keanu is in a valuable commodity to sell movies, and they want to use his star power in any way they can. So here's the question I have to ask. What happened between May of 2017 and June of 2019? The answer took me a while. I knew that there had to be something to fill this void, since a clear timeline hasn't established itself since 2014. So I ran through the list and tried to fill in the gap. The Renaissance actor shouldn't be bound by gender, even though the three we have named so far are men. I wonder if that has anything to do with the systems put in place in Hollywood and the opportunities that are afforded to female stars as opposed to male counterparts. And even then, I couldn't find a career arc that struggled before 2017, but then rose to critical and commercial success at this time. First, I thought it might be Ethan Hawke. First Reformed was released in August of 2017, and he had a string of pretty successful films following it. But here's the problem. Ethan Hawke doesn't really have a dip in his filmography. He's got Boyhood and Oscar nominations in 2014, and he's got Before Midnight in 2013, and plenty of financial and critical wins throughout his career. And so, because of that, he can't really qualify for the title of a Renaissance actor. In order to be that, you need to have been a big star at one point, faded into some form of obscurity, and then returned to form in commercial, critical, and cultural ways. If your filmography is a consistent flow of wins and successes, then you can't really return to form. Then I thought it might be Robert Pattinson. The once Twilight star had an incredible turnaround in his career, culminating in August of 2017's Good Times, for which he was nominated for pretty much every critics award in the country. Following that, he had continuous success with the critically acclaimed High Life and The Lighthouse, the latter of which premiered at Cannes right before the Keanu-sance began. But there are problems with this too. Even though Pattinson was a major star at the peak of the Twilight years, there was a stigma attached to him for being associated with the teen girl fandom. I wonder if that is because we unfairly persecute female teenage culture in ways we do not with male teenage culture. Not to mention the fact that Pattinson's rise to a return has only just begun. He still has Batman and Tenet to truly reveal the Pattinsons to the world. So my prediction is that Robert will be the next Renaissance actor to replace Keanu. I looked at Kurt Russell, but just a Fast and Furious movie and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is not nearly enough to justify a Renaissance. I also looked at Tom Cruise for Mission Impossible Fallout and American Made, and it's fair to say that 2008 to 2013 wasn't great for Cruise, but that would also be discounting the power of Edge of Tomorrow and Ghost Protocol and then Rogue Nation. Toni Collette had Hereditary. That's really it. Knives Out premiered months after Keanu-sance was full steam ahead, so that doesn't really work. Anne Hathaway wouldn't work because Ocean's 11 is really all I see there. Nick Cage has Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Mandy, but that's hardly a renaissance. I don't know what to do. 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 But then it hit me. It was staring directly at my face. The truth to what I was looking for was right in the poster for Robert Pattinson's Cannes premiere. Willem Dafoe. The Dafoe-sance, a man who received the Best Supporting Actor nomination at the Academy Awards for his work in 1987's Platoon, a man whose work prior to 2017 included The Great Wall, A Family Man, and Dog Eat Dog, a man whose film, The Florida Project, released in October of 2017, garnered him a nomination for Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards, and his big release the following year was At Eternity's Gate, which brought him a nomination for Best Leading Actor at the Academy Awards. And in between, we see an excellent performance in Death Note, Murder on the Orient Express, and the $1 billion plus at the box office Aquaman. A man whose most recent film, The Lighthouse, premiered at Cannes right before the Keanu-sance begins. This choice isn't perfect. For one thing, Willem Dafoe's decade before 2017 is hardly anything to be ashamed of, with roles in Grand Budapest Hotel, Fault in Our Stars, and John Wick, but nothing there got him major critical attention or Oscar nominations like he did in 2017 and 2018. And then, also, it's kind of unfair to say that his renaissance is over. The Lighthouse premiered theatrically in the middle of the Keanu-sance, and he does have a role in the upcoming The French Dispatch by Wes Anderson. But at the same time, he's released a Netflix movie that no one watched, an Edward Norton film that no one watched, and a Disney Plus movie that I didn't even know about. It's kind of all just a little mixed up right now, but it's the closest thing we have to an answer to the timeline. But in conclusion, I think that part of the Renaissance theory I've created is complete and utter BS. Obviously, it would be pretty strange for there to be an all-knowing God of Hollywood who selects individuals to return to glory and remind us of why they wowed us in the first place. But another way of looking at it is that culturally, we want to attach ourselves to the underdog and be reminded of a nostalgic time when things might be perceived as being better. And bringing back old stars might be a way of reigniting those feelings and allowing us to believe that anyone can return to the spotlight. Obviously, a lot of this is managed and promoted by managers and agents and publicists and studio heads and more, but I also think that audiences have a say in who they want to see succeed and latch on to that train ride to success. I don't know, but I'm going to keep track of my Renaissance theory, and I guess I'll update you as we move farther down the timeline. Be safe, have fun, and don't forget to love yourself. So, Blindsided is a thing. Basically, Michelle Monaghay is a blind person. She was a photojournalist in Iraq or something, and then a bomb exploded, and then she lost her vision, and then she has a rich boyfriend. But then, like, these criminals come in and try to steal some diamonds, and she's blind, and she's like, oh, I don't know what to do, I'm blind. And there's a scene where they're on the balcony. You know, Michael Keaton's just got the cat, and he's like, tell me where the diamonds are. And this feels so ridiculous, and Michelle is blind, so she can't see anything, and they're holding the cat, and he's being hilarious. But then you clearly see he has a live cat in his hand, and then he throws that cat over whatever that green screen balcony is. I don't think that this movie has a good enough budget to do some kind of CGI transfer or anything like that. So that cat probably is real. And I'm not saying like they threw it like and it just, but like did it like land on a pad, or was there like some PA who was just ready to catch the cat down there and like, okay. But yeah. And that was what Michael Keaton released like 5 months before Birdman released, and he yeah.